What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here, joined by our good friend Justis Mosqueda from the Acme Packing Company, dropping some knowledge over there at APC regarding new defensive coordinator for the Packers, Jonathan Gannon, and his coverages that he runs pretty much as a coordinator, head coach, what have you. Justis, how you doing today, buddy?
Well, I woke up, I think it was like 8 West Coast time, and I was like, Keyshawn's at the Pro Bowl. That's how my day
So that's something for Gannon to work with. He's got a Pro Bowl corner.
Pro Bowl corner. Yeah.
I mean, look, we all know that's because lots of people have dropped out, and Witherspoon's in the bowls, so they gotta send somebody, and Keyshawn gets the call.
Do they even do events?
Yeah, that was what I was just gonna say. It's so wild that I don't even realize what the Pro Bowl is anymore. Like I think they have a flag football game.
That's what I was like. I know there's like something that's like close to like the old what is it, quarterback competition,
quarterback challenge kind of thing.
Like they have a thing that's sort of like that. Is Keyshawn going to be doing anything down there? I don't know.
I mean, that's the other part down there. It's not even in Hawaii anymore. I mean, you wonder why guys are bowing out. You got Shedeur Sanders quarterbacking because Trevor Lawrence was like, yeah, nah. It's good times. But yes, Pro Bowl corner, Keyshawn Nixon and company will be working with one Jonathan Gannon. Something that I've kind of joked about in through this kind of couple day process of Gannon being hired, etc. Though we still have not heard from the Green Bay Packers on this, but
we might not. I mean, Aaron, we were together at the Combine a couple of years ago, and they hadn't announced a quarterback coach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I think one time,
or wide years coach.
Yeah,
second year.
Yep. I think there was one time they announced the coaching staff in April. So
classic Packers.
You guys want to hold your breath? Go for it, but call your physician first.
Yeah, no question about it. But with Gannon coming in, it's funny because I know during the search, people were very kind of adamant they wanted this guy or that guy. And my running joke had been, and it still kind of maintains here post-hiring, the defensive coordinator, whoever gets hired and whatever he runs, isn't nearly as important as what direction he's being given by the head coach. It's his defense, right? And whatever coverages Gannon is going to run, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit because I do want to get to your piece, but I still think the style of defense, we've heard Matt talk a lot about play style over his tenure in Green Bay. I don't suspect we're going to see a material difference when it comes to how they operate on defense. Tell me if you think I'm off base
here. In terms of aggressiveness, probably not. Right. So the only guy that they interviewed that I think would have been different would have been Durante Jones.
Would have been because the Vikings, right?
Yeah, because he comes from Flores defense, all that stuff. But no, I mean, ultimately Matt wants to get into execution battles. That's what he views football as. He wants to get 1 point more than the other team, and then have the team chase that point as he shortens it as much as possible. Which, by the way, Gannon, I think like on a per play basis, teams take more time off the clock against Gannon's defenses than anyone else. And it's because I mentioned this with Andy Herman after the Cardinals-Packers game. Like, you're doing so many motions and pushes and reloads and all sorts of stuff just to get every piece of data to figure out what the heck that they're doing on the defensive side, because they do disguise stuff pretty well.
Yes.
They didn't have a ton of talent, but they do disguise stuff pretty well in Arizona under Gannon and, Rollis, who we should probably talk about at some point.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this is definitely going to shorten games 100%. And this is definitely a bend, don't break move 100%. Like, this is how Matt views football, folks. And the Packers think that they're on the right track. They're like, yeah, double down on everything. We're on the right track. So if you're going to be mad at that, do something else with your Sundays.
You got a long couple years ahead of you.
From an aneurysm. So.
Exactly. But let's get into what you've written about, because I do think it's very illuminating as far as the approach within kind of the calls. And something that you highlighted is how Gannon not only is in the kind of leading the charge. I mean, he is the charge when it comes to cover 4 and or quarters. And it's something you hear a lot about in football terminology, coverage, what have you. But can you give the layman out here in Cheesehead TV land kind of what the idea is behind quarters coverage? Because, like you wrote, I think we're going to see quite a bit of it with Gannon in town.
So there's like two different kinds of quarters. Okay. So there's cover 4, right? Which is like, if you listen to what like defensive coordinators and stuff talk about, they'll often call it country quarters, which is sort of kind of like spot drop zone, right? You're covering grass, you're not covering a player. You're in an area of the field and you have your eyes on the quarterback and you break to the ball when it's coming out, and that's how you close that distance and how you make up for the fact that you're covering grass instead of covering a player. Then there is cover 7, which is what most of the top college programs are running. It's what some of the Fangio stuff is. It's what all those like University of Michigan guys, like McDonald with
Harbaugh, right?
Yeah, like all those guys, right? It's what those guys are running, and what that is like fundamentally a different way to think about football. Because like man coverage is based off your alignment. I have you. I never pass you off, right? And I just cover you wherever you're at on the field. Spot drop zone is I'm covering grass. I'm not covering a player. The man match stuff, which is the cover 7 quarters, is I have you until I don't. And then once you do something else, I snap to a different route, right? Yeah. So like a lot of times, for example, let's say you have trips to one side, right? You have 3 receivers to one side. What they'll have is you could do different things with that outside corner, right? Where they'll call it Meg, they'll call it Mod. Meg is like man everywhere he goes. Mod is man on demand. So like if you're an outside corner, and the way that they number it, right, is outside going in the same way that like if any of you played like kickoff or anything like that in high school or college or the NFL. I don't know. I'm not, maybe there's some
our viewership is wide. No doubt about it.
So the far outside receiver would be number 1. Okay. So if you're an outside corner, if you're in Meg, you take him fully no matter what, wherever he goes. He runs a drag, you take the drag. If you're in Mod, you're not. Right? So that guy goes, now your eye snaps to number 2. And if number 2 is running a corner route or something like that, anything vertical, you're sticking him immediately. And you could get double teams on those deeper routes and stuff that way. It's really different, man. There's a lot of checks, a lot of communications, definitely a more like thinking man's version of the game. Teams were hesitant to run this for a couple of reasons, right? Like you can look at Barry, and like Barry, I think, is like a reason why teams were hesitant on it, where like the tree was so small to start. Right. There weren't many people that actually knew it. Barry was a Marinelli guy his whole career. Like he was a GA for him at USC. He married his daughter, by the way.
Yes, famously, right?
Marinelli's daughter, not Barry. Barry did not.
No,
I do not want to put that on him. Coach for him in Tampa. Coach for him with the Lions, right?
That's right.
But
that's where
he ended up in Los Angeles, where Brandon Staley for one season was his DC. And then people were like, "Oh, well, then Barry knows the system. Then if he had 1.0 year underneath him, Packers ran a lot of quarters that first year. They blew some coverages, right? Like there are times where people were like, "Oh, Jair gave up 100 whatever yards to Justin Jefferson." It's like that wasn't Jair at all. That was actually Darnell Savage, and he just never took it. And Jair passed off a route that never got taken, and it went for 45 yards, right? They really toned it down, the quarter stuff after that. And basically for like the last 2 years of Barry and the 2 years of Halfley, we don't really run quarters, whether even like spot drop. It was, for the most part, if they're getting in the quarters world, they're playing quarters to one side and then cover 2 on the other.
That's something that we've seen quite a bit. That's kind of, I'm not going to say taken over, but we've seen a lot more of that in the NFL. Over the course,
it's a lot easier if you want to put 3 guys on one side and 1 on the other. Yeah, I want more guys. My defense doesn't have to match, right? If the offense isn't matching, why am I having my defense match?
Why do I have to be balanced? Exactly.
Right. 100%. So that's kind of the logic behind it. But yeah, I mean, the cover 7 stuff is really interesting. Gannon didn't call plays in Arizona, as you mentioned.
Mm.
The last 3 years, he did call for 2 years in Philadelphia, but the teams have been a quarters-based system at both spots. I got the numbers. The numbers aren't good in terms of splitting cover 4 and cover 7. Like I don't, because I got this back end numbers. Nagler, I wasn't supposed to publish them, but
Quite all right.
so I can't say the data source, but like there's not good data on when teams are running cover 4 and when they're running cover 7. With that being said, over the last 5 years, no team in the NFL has run more quarters calls than what Gannon has done. Okay. And you could use cover 4 and cover 7 and cover and quarters, like use quarters interchangeably, however you want. As far as the staff goes, obviously we're going to need to hire a linebackers coach because Duggan just left and there's no one else.
Gone. Doward's gone.
Downard is interesting because Gannon's first staff in Philadelphia, they were a 4-3 team. They weren't a 3-4 team. They only had one positional coach for every level of the defense. So, like, it could be they're running a 4-3. It's Covington on the line. We hire a linebackers coach. Ansley's in charge of the DBs.
The DBs, right.
That's it. But in Arizona, they ran a 3-4. Most of the teams like to run a 3-4 because of how the run fits work with the extra safety out of the box. They had a defensive line coach, an outside linebackers coach, what they called a linebackers coach, and that guy just coached inside linebackers, DBs coach, and then a cornerbacks coach. So they did have 2 more assistants, 3 more assistants. So potentially Green Bay could hire 1, 2, 3 more on-field coaches, depending on how they want to structure their staff. Who that is, I don't know. I think Wallace makes a lot of sense at linebacker. Wallace was Gannon's defensive coordinator in Arizona. He was also his linebackers coach in Philadelphia, and they both have a huge amount of ties with Mike Zimmer. Gannon is actually, like, if you're going to say he's from a certain tree,
I was going to say
it's the Zimmer tree.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've already seen people try to knock him because of his ties to Eberflus, but I'm like, does anyone remember how good Eberflus's defense was in Indianapolis? Like,
yeah,
I get he's flamed out as a head coach and had a very bad defense in Dallas, but it's not like Eberflus was producing bad defenses when he was with the Colts. Like, that's I just, it's funny to me that the amnesia is so quick to take hold of folks.
The one crossover with Eberflus and Gannon is the hits thing, right?
Yeah.
Pull it up. Oh man, it's one of my favorite things in the world. It's like the worst acronym. So this is how they see defense: hits, hustle, intensity, takeaways, smart.
Hey,
smart.
You know what? Smart. You know what, Justis? I'll take all that. Smart. Yes. Smart. Right. I'll take all that in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And it's funny you mentioned that because you're talking about the ability to be malleable on the back end, considering if you are in 7, whatever, and the need to be in a thinking man's defense, right? And you have to make real quick split-second decisions as far as guys coming off the line and who's who and who's taking, who's dropping, etc. What was fascinating to me was kind of reading into his time in Arizona in particular. They didn't have many coverage busts. Like, you talk about a team that was well-versed, and I think you saw that play out both games the Packers played them these last couple of years, where it's hard. It has been hard to move the ball on this defense. I mean, they are, at least under Gannon, they have been assignment sound wherever he's been.
Yes. Yeah, and that's where I think there's a little context needed. Like, Doug, when he took that job in Arizona, there was no defense that was less talented than the Cardinals.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it definitely takes some context. They don't have a lot of coverage busts. I mean, again, that's why, like, when people were like, Barry, I'm like, one of the 3 years they tried this under Barry, and then they got out of it, and they had a ton of coverage busts that first year. Gannon hasn't had the coverage bust, so I'm less inclined to think that that's going to happen here. Ansley, by the way, who I assume he's going to be kept. I can't imagine that the Packers.
So far, there hasn't. I've been a bit surprised that there hasn't been more kind of smoke around his name, but I feels like he's sticking around because I haven't seen him connected anywhere else.
So Ansley has extensive time in the system.
Yep.
Ansley was at Alabama where they made this system, right? They literally
Right.
created it from the ground up. If you ever see, there's always that cut up of Nick Saban in like some summer
Right.
camp where he's throwing his woven hat on the ground and he's yelling at guys and he's like, "It's cut, it's cut." Cut is one of these, like cover 7 is a family of coverages, right? And cut is one of the calls inside of it. So like when people are going to break down this defense, they're like, "What are we in? Well, is it cut? Is it cone? Are we in Meg? Are we in
Man?
Are we in stub?"
It's bringing me back to cover 7 slice. Can't wait, baby.
So Ansley was there for Saban. Okay, he ends up being, I believe he was the defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach under Jeremy Pruitt, who was a Saban DC at Tennessee. So he has those 2 spots. And then once he got into the NFL, he had some time with the Raiders, but then he was the defensive backs coach and DC under Brandon Staley, who's the guy, like he was the first like non-Fangio who actually got to run this at the NFL level and do it on his own, right? So he like extensive experience in the system. I would have to imagine that he's coming back. Yeah. So there's some experience there. This is kind of the language that college football speaks. So I do kind of think like it might be
dipping the toe into that water for the possible.
I mean, when people are like, "Oh,
coaching
Philadelphia keeps drafting these kids out of Georgia and Alabama, and they're producing immediately," and it's like, well, they're running the same stuff that they were doing it, in college. That might be part of it too. One thing I think fans are not going to. So just because you're too high doesn't mean that you're not a run defense. The guys who run this, they will tell you we can get 9 guys in the box, which is different than if you're playing single high and both of the corners are out of the fit and the high safety is out of the fit. So they're actually +1 in the box eventually, not immediately.
Right.
Eventually,
the pre-snap look is too high, but
you could be too high. But here's the thing: those guys at the line of scrimmage, they're playing run first, right? Which is not what fans want to hear when you have Micah Parsons. Yeah. I understand that.
Right.
But on, if you're in your base set, like that is kind of what life is going to be like. So yeah, it's going to be a whole lot of we're holding at the point of attack, and that is allowing our linebackers not to bite on run immediately and to actually be able to like cover their butts in the play action game. It's going to allow our safeties to play pass first and then fit into the run once they realize like, oh, okay, the ball was actually handed off, right?
Then
so you play run first on the line of scrimmage so that you can play pass first in the secondary is kind of how it works. But then you do eventually get those 2 bodies from the safety level that do get to add into the box to stop the run. That was always part of the like. It was funny because it's always like just because you run a defense doesn't mean that like it's executing well. Like the Joe Barry defense was a run stopping defense,
right?
And we could not stop the run. The Jeff Hafley defense was to increase the amount of turnovers, and we did not increase the amount of turnovers.
Didn't do anything.
So
even close to that, yeah.
But on paper, yes, this is actually supposed to be. It's a run first defense on the line of scrimmage. It is a pass first defense at the linebacker and defensive back level. And yeah, you're going to have to 2-gap. You're going to have to be big on the line.
I was just going to ask. That's my 2 questions there. Do you think it's going to be a 2-gap approach up front? Where for those who don't know, that's where you're asking your defensive tackles and your defensive ends. You are playing gaps and you are responsible for them. A lot of times on either kind of almost like a 2-way go where I'm controlling like this gap, that gap, etc. Or is it going to be? I mean, because under Hafley, the idea was we're trying to shoot into gaps and create havoc up front, as little as that may have happened.
So it's not like old school 3-4 defense. What they really do, so they call it Jimmy Pony a lot of the time.
I love these names.
Yeah, it's a different way of thinking about football, man. They have their own communication language. Mm-hmm. So really, what it is it's not really 2-gapping, but the gap that you start, because I think people will think like slants or like stunts or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's not hitting that fast, but the gap that you start in isn't the one that you end up at. So like you will have situations where, I should slow myself down. I'm doing the nerd rant talk.
It's nerd out, man. It's the internet. We got all the time in the world.
This defense wants to spill everything outside because that is where you can get the most help, right? So if you're slow playing at linebacker, you're slow playing the run at safety. If you spill it to the side, that allows you to get the closing distance in, right, from depth. But he's actually the ball carrier is not gaining yardage because you don't get credit for moving to the side,
sideways, right?
So that's kind of the theoretical basis behind it. What you will have is Micah Parsons lining up outside of a tight end or a tackle, right? Hitting it immediately, and then that running back is just taking, one or two steps, and then he's basically like crossing that tackle or tight end's face to the inside and no longer being the edge guy because the edge guy,
you're not worried about
you're spilling it
out. Yep.
The way that they talk about
it, Pickett.
Yeah, the way that they talk about it is, you don't want the run falling off the table, right? But it is supposed to go outside. It's not supposed to go outside fast, right? But it is supposed to eventually bounce outside so that you can then rally and tackle with the pass first defenders who are then slowly fitting, or not slowly, but like
triggering,
instantly triggering whenever they see run. So yeah, I mean that's the
what do you think as far as you're talking, like let's draw it back, right? And just real traditional quarters when you look at that on a blackboard, right? And Justis in his piece has he's linked to a video that kind of very quickly explains a lot of different types of coverages.
We could do this for 3 hours if you really want to get
exactly. So I encourage people to check that out. But like in the traditional quarter model, right, you've got the two high safeties and the two corners taking those quadrants, right, on the top to protect it deep, etc. I think the most fascinating aspect here is going to be, or one of the most fascinating aspects, as far as numbers go, of who's on the field. Because in traditional models, you've got those three backers there. Like, I got to suspect one of those backers is Javon Bullard, and they're going to intermix some nickel play with that, go big nickel style, because you can't keep Bullard off the field. Like, I don't think they're going to want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, so from his personnel perspective, like they did some weird stuff in Arizona that has never happened before in the NFL. They played like 3 true high safety. Like
I know 3 safety looks. Dude, that stuff against the Packers 2 years in Lambeau was ridiculous.
I gotta find a photo for you guys. There is one from this past year. Yeah, I got it. Put it in the APC Slack. There's a photo from last year where we have 5 defensive backs standing like 10 yards off.
10 yards off.
Right? So when we're talking about 3 safeties, we are not talking about
3 high safeties. We're talking across the board 5 people.
And the cornerbacks are all like they're basically saying like, dude, you can throw whatever you want underneath and we're going to rally and tackle it. Like there's not a huge amount of coverage rules in like those subsets. He also plays a ton of penny, which Joe Barry did. Penny it's a nickel set, right? You have the Javon Bullard in the slot,
right?
But instead of taking off one of the guys on the line of scrimmage, what you're doing is you're taking off an inside linebacker. So if they're playing their 3-4, right? On the line of scrimmage, you're still going to have the 3 defensive tackles, the 2 outside linebackers who are going to be the edge rushers, right? That's going to be LVN and Micah Parsons probably.
Most likely.
He's going to get, but then you only have that one linebacker in the middle of the field.
Yep.
Here is the thing, and this is the other thing that the fans are not going to want to hear. Dave McDuffie has gotten every opportunity to play the Mike linebacker spot over both Edgerrin Cooper and Tyron Hopper over the last 2 years. There is a real chance that we see a line of scrimmage where it's, Micah, Devontae Wyatt, insert whoever we're going to draft in the day 2 to play nose tackle.
Day 2 to be, yep.
Whoever wins.
Hey, that is actually, nose tackle is the one spot where I think there's a small chance they hit free agency. Small chance.
They need it. I
know. Well, I know. That's my point.
Yes. Center, I think that might be potential too.
That's
going
to be a draft. That's going to be a drafted guy.
We'll see what happens.
Or Jacob Monk. They're going to draft a guy to compete with Jacob Monk. That's my guess.
I guess. But yeah, so Carl Brooks, Kobe Wooden, one of the other 2 at the other 3 tech, LVN on the line of scrimmage, and then Isaiah McDuffie and Edgerrin Cooper is watching from the bench. Like that's a real possibility, a real thing that could happen. I think, like, dude, if you ask me, like, who is this the worst news for? I will say maybe McDuffie too at the same time, even though the staff has pushed him
They love him
at the green dot spot more than anyone else,
Yep.
other than Quay, who I think is going to end up signing elsewhere. You have to be able to run in this defense. And that is not something that Isaiah McDuffie does well. So, like, you brought up country quarters, right? And some of the examples. So, like, you have those 4 guys deep, right? You have the 2 safeties playing the 2 zones in the middle of the field. You have the cornerbacks basically playing deep sidelines. You have, whether it's outside linebackers, right? Or your will, which in our case is Cooper, and the slot defender. Those guys are covering the flats. So, like, anyone runs a hitch, anyone runs a swing out of the backfield, like, that's their guy. And then you have this middle linebacker who's playing the middle of the field, right? What ends up happening is there's massive zones, massive windows, I guess I should say, in between the flat zones and where the middle linebacker is, right? And if you just call a route that goes into that and you throw it into it, like, you get it. And it's not a defender's fault. They're playing their rule. Like, it's just you did it. You hit my battleship. Congrats. Right? Like, that's really what it is. In the cover 7 system, what they will tell that middle linebacker is you're relating to 3. So if, like, he sees a swing out of the backfield and then a guy is trying to cross his face, he knows, because the running back has taken it, like, eliminated himself from the route combinations that would be his assignment. When that slot receiver runs a drag, he's shooting at that slot receiver. I'm snapping to him immediately, and I take him anywhere he goes
all the way
from that point forward.
Yeah.
That's where you get into problems where, hey, we're in Penny. Isaiah McDuffie is our.
Can you imagine? No.
Justin Jefferson's in the slot. That's not a good one.
And
right?
hell, any of the receivers in the NFC North are in the slot.
Yeah.
And you got McDuffie having to try and take that drag. I mean, not fun.
Yeah. Athletic linebackers. I will say the linebackers were coached well under Wallace. Again, I don't know that he is going to be the linebackers coach. He makes the most sense that he would be our linebackers coach with that vacancy open, especially, like, the Packers could have blocked either Downard or Duggan leaving, right? Because they didn't. Well, as far as we know, they didn't leave for defensive coordinator jobs.
I think Duggan did. I think Duggan's going to be their DC.
Maybe.
It's not official yet, but it's a possibility.
There's the dude. I always mess up his name. His name is like Lakuba or something like that. He's the linebackers coach. Yeah, Lakuba. God, Lakubu. Dang. He's the linebackers coach for the Jaguars right now.
Right.
He was actually the defensive coordinator under Hafley for the first 3 years at Boston College, and then he left. Right. And then that's when Duggan got promoted and split co-defensive coordinator title with someone else. So, like, him and Duggan were the two that always made the most sense to be under Hafley as a DC when you, like, talk to people in the league and stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised. I would wait on the final announcement, though, because I don't know if.
Yeah, like I said, I know it's the reporting's out there, and I think Spoon had it initially, but there hasn't.
He said potentially.
Potentially, right? Yeah.
Which, again, I agree with him, and I would like to know what happens with Lakovu. With that being said, I mean, Campanelli just said that he just pulled out of the Cardinals job, and he's going back in Jacksonville. So who knows?
Both of their guys got interviews and said, "Nah." I love it. They're OC and DC. Both were like, I've seen elsewhere. No thanks.
Arizona is down to, I believe, Mike LaFleur, who hasn't taken an interview elsewhere.
Right.
And Raheem, who hasn't taken an interview elsewhere. And Packers fans swore, we want Raheem because he's not a flight risk. He won't be getting another head coaching job soon. If the NFL is firing 10 head coaches a year, guys, all that means is more retreads. We're not making any more talented young coaches.
Just had the Mike McCarthy press conference earlier today. That's his third crack at the apple.
Dog, he's living like a YouTube
king, man.
Madden franchise series. Like, he's been the head coach of the Packers, the Cowboys and the Steelers.
3 pillar organizations. Mike McCarthy owns the NFL.
Good for him. He seemed really happy.
No, 100% good for him. Me too. Definitely pulling for him. Justis, like you said, we could talk for 3 hours, but I will make sure that people are headed over to your piece over there at Acme Packing Company. Great stuff, as always. We'll be catching up with you real soon throughout the offseason. Make sure you're checking out Justis's work there at APC. And Justis, thanks so much, man.
Yes, sir. One last plug on the way out. Shrine Bowl, if this is coming, I assume this is coming out Tuesday. Shrine Bowl is going to be played in a couple hours on NFL Network. My former boss, Eric Galco, is running the game. Go check it out. There's nose tackles, cornerbacks, and a center, Brian Parker, who's kicking in from Duke, who probably is going to go top 100.
I was just going to say another Duke prospect for the Packers line, potentially.
Yeah. So keep an eye out on those guys. They might be Packers. Also, Sean Mannion is the offensive coordinator of the West.
Coordinator, yes. God, that's going to be interesting, actually. That's kind of the one part of the game I'm kind of interested in watching is how he calls it. Fascinated. Can't wait. Justis, thanks so much, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.